Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Discover new strategies and tactics as Susan Solovic interviews today's top business leaders and entrepreneurs to reveal their stories and insights. And now, the host of the 1% Edge, business expert Susan Solovic.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the 1% Edge podcast. I'm Susan Solovic. Each week I bring you amazing thought leaders to share insight and expertise so you can take your business to the next level. The key in today's competitive market is to constantly focus on moving forward. It's not the status quo anymore, it's the status grow. You and your team need to be creative and innovative in order to remain relevant and sustain your success. When I was a little girl growing up in a small Midwestern town, my mother used to save money each month for an amazing family vacation. As those pennies added up, one at a time, she used to say to me, "If you can't go first class, don't go at all." You may be wondering what that has to do with business, but my guest today can explain. She is the author of Upgrade and the CEO of the Creative Class Group. She's worked with major brands such as IBM, Disney, Cirque Du Soleil, and one of my favorite companies, Zappos. Rana Florida, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, and I love your mother.
Gotta go first class, right? And I love the name of your book, Upgrade. Tell me a little bit about the premise of the book.
So I was taught my entire life to go to school, get good grades, go on to graduate school, and land a high-paying corporate job. And like many people, I went on to achieve that, but I found that, I was miserable. I was stuck in traffic for hours a day. I was working for psycho bosses. Had no time or control over my schedule, and I hated what I was doing. So one day when BMW called my husband's office, who was a best-selling author at the time himself, asking for a consulting project, he said, "Why don't you join," as I had an MBA and a business background, "and lead the company?" So it was a huge risk at the time, and I was fraught with making this decision, being married to him, not only personally and professionally, but taking this huge risk. But I took the risk, and I was so excited that I did because I regained control of my time and schedule, was able to lead the business into a new and revenue model that was very successful for years to come. And I'm just so happy that I took the leap of faith. But when I did this, I also decided to launch a column called Your Startup Life with the Huffington Post, where I would learn from successful entrepreneurs on how they created their own success. And I didn't want to just interview successful CEOs, Fortune 100 companies, but I wanted to look outside the box. So I interviewed graffiti artists, a neuroscientist, the head of the Mayo Clinic. I interviewed First Lady Michelle Obama, tennis star Andre Agassi. I interviewed celebrity chefs, and a whole slew of people. And I really found that within a series of interviews, it really boiled down to 7 key steps that they all took to achieve success. And that's why I wrote the book Upgrade, to share those learnings.
So I want to get into that, but I also have to ask you, how is it working with your husband?
Well, it works because there is a division of labor. So he's the academic and researcher and global thought leader, and I tend to stay on the consulting business side of things. So it's a good division.
Great, great. So in talking to all these wonderful people that you interviewed for the book, what are some of the common themes that you heard?
What was really interesting, one was lead by serving. So a lot of people think, the boss should be at the top of the pyramid and this hierarchical strategy and dictate what everyone else should be doing. But really, lead by serving means mentoring your team, advising them, showing them the path to succeed and help them bring the organization together forward. So it's not telling everyone what's right and what's wrong, but really listening and mentoring and helping those ideas move forward.
I want to expand a little bit because in my book, actually, the 1% Edge, I talk about, there really can't be any, there's no such thing as a dumb idea. Leave your ego parked at the door, and really empower your team to toss out those ideas. And you never know where the big ideas are going to come from.
Absolutely. I heard that from so many different people. I was at a conference where I heard Steve Batiach, who manages applied science at Microsoft, who says he really encourages stupid ideas. And, he said that you can't really succeed as an organization if curiosity is stifled in a risk-free environment. So really the next new discoveries and innovations come from putting these innovative ideas out there. And if people are laughing at those ideas, you're not really encouraging or fostering a culture where DNA is embedded into the organization. He said people who laughed at the idea of the seatbelt, and that was only because it seemed so stupid at the time, but your time and reference is constantly changing. So when you look back at an idea, it could seem smart in the future.
And who would have ever thought that Uber would take over and change the taxi industry? That would have seemed far-fetched a long time ago.
Exactly. Car sharing, the entire sharing economy seemed like a silly idea. But really, risk-taking leads to a lot of new discoveries and innovations. And Facebook's motto is to move fast and break things, meaning make lots of small bets. And Peter Sims wrote a book called Little Bets, where he talks about innovative companies like Google and Amazon and Pixar, to a lesser extent. Sorry, let's start over. To a lesser extent, companies like Toyota and 3M, but where risk-taking is a way of its culture in the environment there.
It really does have to be something in the culture because, as you're saying, you can't be at the top dictating this is what we're going to do. It has to bubble up through the organization.
Yeah, and there are lots of interesting ways of doing that. When I interviewed the founders of Warby Parker, the retail eyeglass company, they said that every Friday they encouraged their employees to submit a stupid idea. And one of those stupid ideas really paid off. It was an idea called Warby Barker, where they would make eyeglasses for dogs. And it was a silly little thing, but they launched a website called Warby Barker, and it ended up getting them so much marketing and PR material, and it went viral, and it was a huge hit. And it was a silly idea, but it really was an amazing mass marketing effort.
So what are some of the other common themes that you found when you talked to these individuals?
A lot of innovators and leaders and people who really succeeded were not afraid of failure. They did not look at failure as a black mark on their record. They really looked at it as a way to succeed. And entrepreneurs, especially in Silicon Valley, they have a whole resume filled with failures, and they look at it as a way to learn. They learn from their mistakes and they move forward. So a lot of people in this day and age, they keep their heads down. They're afraid to take risks. Failure is considered a black mark on their record, and they don't embrace it as part of the learning process. So really, if you look at failure, if you look at every success, there is failure behind it.
I was going to say, Bill Gates always says failure is research. You learn so much from it. I know I personally learned more from the things that didn't go right than the things that did go right. But do you think maybe that part of that fear of failure comes from that we're living in this world of, everybody gets a trophy if you just show up and, put on your clothes and wave your hand, and it doesn't matter if you win or lose, you just get a trophy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, failure and risk-taking cause a lot of emotional turmoil and discomfort. So people don't really go in that direction. They're trying to stay the course. We're taught really to have performance reviews where we have measurable results. We look at those results where they achieved, and we're really not taught to think outside the box. So failure is not really in our comfort zone. But if you look at all the tech industries in Silicon Valley, they now have a conference called FailCon where they celebrate their failures. And one of the mottos is to fail fast and fail often. So their learning experience, and it's a time to regroup and rethink and move forward.
Well, and I believe that my audience tends to be a smaller to mid-sized organization, but we have a real competitive advantage because you can make those failures and turn on a dime and pivot and get out there and go to a new approach.
And it's interesting because it's embedded in us as human beings. We've always learned through trial and error. If you consider being a toddler, I have a 2-year-old and a 10-month-old, and if you consider being a toddler, we learn through our fine motor skills. And they fall down and they hit their head and they bang their head and they get back up. So imagine if those toddlers banged their head and they didn't get back up. I mean, it's embedded into who we are as human beings. We learn through trial and error. So I'm not sure why that culture did not move forward into most organizations.
So tell me a little bit about your company. What does your company do?
The Creative Class Group is a global advisory services firm based on research and data. So we'll help companies and regions and cities around the world move forward and realize better competitiveness and economic growth through data-driven insights. So we have proprietary data on the Creative Class, and we'll work with all sorts of companies. So we'll help, for example, Cirque Du Soleil understand which neighborhoods are the most creative neighborhoods to pitch their tents. or we'll help companies like Starwood Hotels find the most innovative cities to grow and expand into, or we'll help them even redesign their lobby and guest experience. We worked with the Le Méridien branch recently to help the arrival experience assimilate to the city. So what was the cultural art in that city, and how would guests take that experience away with them? So it's really using data and research to drive competitiveness.
And are there some interesting trends you're starting to see when it comes to the competitive marketplace?
Well, the creative class, surprisingly, only make up 30% of our workforce. They create 50% of our wages, but they control 70% of our discretionary spending and income. So there's this real key driver of making global trends. They fashion the way we work, live, and play. So they're really the key driver behind most companies.
So as a business leader, whether you're running a team in a larger organization or you're the founder and CEO of your own company, how do you nurture that kind of creativity and really, get people to step up to the plate and be engaged with that?
So I like to foster a culture of yes. So whenever someone has an idea, I think the first reaction is to say no and then list all the reasons why it won't work. But fostering a culture of yes is, hey, let's figure out a way to advance this idea forward. Let's not think of all the negative ways that we can squelch this idea. A colleague that I work with at the Atlantic, for example, calls it a souffle. You come up with this big, amazing idea, and it's so beautiful and delicious, and then people start digging into it, and it deflates automatically. So instead of creating that type of environment, talk to people about creating a culture of yes.
I really like that. I think, though, a lot of business owners, it's your baby, you started it, and you know better than anyone else. So what would you say to a business leader, the founder of a company, of letting go of some of that?
So that's really smart, because 80% of small companies and startups fail within the first year and a half. And most people think it's cash flow issues, but cash flow issues are really down the line. It's really about leadership and finding the right team and the right partners, and also creating a product that the market really needs and differentiating yourself. But being a leader who has the right team and empowering your team is going to help them invest in the company.
How important is diversity in terms of building this creativity within your organization?
Diversity is key to the success of everything. Coming at something with lots of different viewpoints really helps move an idea forward. I mean, you can't have 5 people with one viewpoint. It really doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you're collaborating amongst a diverse group of people, I think that's when ideas really spark and come to fruition.
So you have a lot of big clients, but do you also work with smaller organizations?
We work with cities, large and small. We work with small organizations. I think the key behind every organization we work with is a custom tailored project. So we don't take a cookie cutter formula or a cookie cutter strategy and apply it to any organization. We really dig in deep, learn about the organization, learn about the goals, and apply a tailored approach.
So one of the things I talk about is the need to stay relevant, because we've seen a lot of major brands just kind of disappear. So how would you apply your concepts and strategies to an organization that's looking to remain relevant in a rapidly changing market?
I mean, I think first exploring the competition, understanding where you fit within that landscape, and then diving deep into the data and research, and then offering strategy and advice. I think the more information and knowledge that you gather, the more equipped you are to tackle the challenges that you have outside there.
Do you have any thoughts on how artificial intelligence may change the whole business dynamic?
I mean, it's really changed everything that we've done so far in our day and age. I mean, who would have thought that we'd have driverless cars? Who would have thought that, Uber and all the technology we have at our fingertips? I haven't walked into a store probably in 6 months. Everything is now being delivered. I'm wondering if my children are going to ask me, what is a store? Like we ask, what is a payphone? I mean, so the landscape is constantly changing. Blockbuster was this mega behemoth that went out of business so quickly with Netflix and the live streaming. So I think it changes so quickly, and being on top of it and being open and innovative is key to staying relevant.
Rana, I mean, your book is great. So tell us where we can go to find your book.
The easiest way is Amazon.com. It's in 13 different countries, so you can order it wherever you are.
That's great. And to stay up with you, do you blogs, social media, where can we find you?
for Fast Company in the Huffington Post, so you can just Google me. I'm also at ranaflorida.com and on Twitter.
Okay, great. Well, I sure thank you for being here. I think you're right on to something here. Creativity is so critical for all of us to succeed in the years going forward. So I thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And I thank all of you for tuning into this episode of the 1% Edge podcast. As always, this is the program where I bring you the best of the best so your business can become the best. And I hope you'll join me again next week. Be sure to tell your friends and business associates to subscribe to me on iHeartRadio or iTunes. And until next week, I wish you the best of luck and success with your small business. I'm Susan Solovic.
Thanks for listening to the 1% Edge. If you found these insights and tips helpful, be sure to hit the subscribe button on your podcast player and leave a review in iTunes to help others discover the 1% Edge.